Welcome back. Today is the fourth lesson of this series, Defining the Project. Project managers in charge of a single small project can plan and schedule the project tasks without much formal planning and information. However, when the project manager must manage several small projects or a large complex project, a threshold is quickly reached in which the project manager can no longer cope with the details. So this chapter is talking about how to define projects. It describes a disciplined, structured method for selectively collecting information to use through all phases of the project lifecycle to meet the needs of all stakeholders, including customers, project managers, CEOs, and external legislators, and so on, and to measure performance against the strategic plan of the organization. Here is the chapter outline, including 8 topics, including defining the project scope, establishing project priorities, and creating the work breakdown structure, and so on. The method suggested in defining a project is a selective outline of the project called the work breakdown structure, WBS. The early stages of developing and outlining serve to ensuring that all tasks are identified and that participants of the project have an understanding of what is to be done. Once the outline and its details are defined, an integrated information system can be deployed to schedule work and allocate budgets. This baseline information is later used for control. With the work of the project defined through the WBS, the chapter concludes with the process of creating a communication plan used to help coordinate project activities and follow progress. To sum up, the key learning outcomes are identify key elements of a project scope statement and understand why a complete scope statement is critical to project success. Describe the causes of scope creep and the meaning of scope creep and the ways to manage it. Understand why it is important to establish project priorities in terms of time, space, cost, and performance. Demonstrate the importance of a work breakdown structure to the management of projects and how it serves as a database for planning and control. Demonstrate how the organization breakdown structure establishes accountability to organization units. Describe a process breakdown structure and when to use it. Create responsibility metrics for small projects and create a communication plan for a project. First, defining a project starts from 5 general steps for collecting project information. The 5 generic steps described herein provide a structured approach for collecting the project information necessary for developing a WBS. These steps and the development of project networks found in the next chapter of this series all take place concurrently, and several itineraries are typically required to develop dates and budgets that can be used to manage the project. The old saying goes, we can control only what we have planned. It's true. Therefore, defining the project is the first step. Looking further, defining the project scope sets the stage for developing a project plan. Project scope is a definition of the end result or mission of your project, a product or a service for your clients or customers. The primary purpose is to define as clearly as possible the deliverables, step by step, for the end user, and to focus project plans. As fundamental and essential as scope definition appears, it is frequently overlooked by project leaders of well-managed large corporations. Research clearly shows that a poorly defined scope of mission is the most frequently mentioned barriers to project success. In a study involving more than 1,400 project managers in the United States and Canada, Billy and Larson found that approximately 50% of the planning project problems relate to unclear definitions of scope and goals. This and other studies suggest a strong correlation between project success and clear scope definition. The scope document direct focus on the project purposes throughout the life of the project for the customer and the project participants. The scope should be developed under the direction of the project manager and the customer. The project manager is responsible for seeing that there is agreement with the owner on project objectives, deliverables at each stage of the project, technical requirements, and so forth. For example, a deliverable in the early stage might be specifications. For the second stage, 3 prototypes for production. For the third, a sufficient quantity to introduce to market. And finally, marketing, promotion, and training. So your project scope should define the results and to be achievable in specific, tangible, timely, and measurable terms. This diagram shows an example of a project scope management plan. It includes the 6 elements: plan scope management, collect requirements, create WBIs, define scope, control scope, validate scope, and so on. Each element contains sub-activities. Project scope is a keystone interlocking all elements of a project plan. To ensure that scope definition is complete, project managers can use this checklist, including project objectives. This is the first step of project scope definition, and it used to meet customers' needs and expectations. For example, as a result of extensive market research, a computer software company decides to develop a program that automatically translates verbal sentences in English to Russian. The project should be completed within 3 years at a cost not to exceed 1.5 million. That's very specific objectives. The next step is to define major deliverables, the expected outputs over the life of the project. For example, deliverables in the early design phase of a project might be a list of specifications. In the second phase, they could be software coding and a technical manual. The next phase could be to best prototypes. The final phase could be final tests and approval software. 3. A milestone is a significant event in a project that occurs at a point in time. The milestone schedule shows only major segments of work. It represents first rough cut estimates of time, cost, and resources for the project. The milestone schedule is built using the deliverables as a platform to identify major segments of work and an end date. For example, testing complete and finished by July 1st of the same year. Milestones should be natural, important control points in the project, and it should be easy for all project participants to recognize. 4. More frequent than not, a product or a service will have technical requirements to ensure proper performance. For example, a technical requirement for a personal computer might be the ability to accept 120-volt alternating current or 240-volt direct current without any adapters or user switches. Another well-known example is the ability of 911 emergency systems to identify the caller's phone number and location of the phone. 5. Limits and exclusions. Failure to do so could lead to false expectations and to expending resources and time on the wrong problems. Examples of this include local air transportation to and from base camps will be outsourced. System maintenance and repair will be done only up to 1 month after final inspection. Client will be billed for additional training beyond that prescribed in the contract. 6. Reviews with customer. Completion of the scope checklist and with a review with your customer, internal or external. The main concern here is the understanding and agreement of expectation. Is the customer getting what he or she desires in deliverables? Does the project identify key accomplishments, budgets, timing, and performance requirements? Clear communication in all these issues is imperative to avoid claim or misunderstanding. This diagram shows a snapshot from a practical example of scope statement, and it clearly defined the 6 key elements, including from beginning project objectives in specific, measurable, and timely manner, as well as final customer reviews. The checklist on the previous slide is generic. Different industries and companies will develop unique checklists and templates to fit their needs and their specific kind of work. Many companies engaged in contracted work refer to scope statement as a statement of work, SOW. Other organizations use the term project charter. However, the term project charter has emerged to have a special meaning in the world of project management. A project charter refers to a document that authorizes the project manager to initiate and lead the project. This document is issued by upper management and provides the project manager with written authority to use organizational resources for project activities. Often the charter will include a brief scope description as well as such items as risk limits, customer needs, spending limits, and even team composition. Many projects suffer from scope creep, which is the tendency for the project scope to expand over time, usually by changing requirements, specifications, and priorities. Scope creep can be reduced by carefully written your scope statement. A scope statement that is too broad is an invitation for scope creep. Scope creep can have a positive or negative effect on the project, but in most cases, scope creep means added costs and possible delay in the project. Changes in requirements, specifications, and priorities frequently result in cost overrun and delays. Examples are abundant. Denver Airport baggage handling system, Boston's new freeway system, and the list go on. On software development projects, scope creep is manifested in bloated products in which added functionality undermines ease of use. So, according to the PMBOK guide, scope in project management refers to the extent to what a project will produce and the work needed to produce it. The percentage of scope creeping has only been increasing for years now. It was 52% in 2018, and 7 years before that, it was 43%. Scope creep is very common in project management. One of the causes of scope creep is the additional feature and function that have not been prioritized in the project roadmap keep getting added. Most of the time, scope creep is due to external factors. However, internal factors such as miscommunication, lack of understanding of the product vision and goals, and lack of cooperation within the team can play a role. Some of the causes of scope creep in project management include lack of communication between project managers and clients, no clear definition of project scope, features request while the project is ongoing, no uniformity in client's requirement. Scope creep very likely to go unnoticed until it hasn't reached the last stage and exhausted all the budget. The cost of the project is often the first sign of scope creep. If you make the additional changes and updates, the financial resources can deplete. The actual development can also increase other development costs, such as design, production, and so on, affecting overall profit. The key common causes of creep listed here again. So these are something I have commented. Poor requirement analysis, not involving user early enough, understanding project complexity, lack of change control, gold plating. and also ill-defined project, too many cooks in the kitchen, lack of task prioritization. So examples, I mentioned Denver International Airport, DIA, undertook the extreme progressive project of creating a fully automated baggage handling system in the 1990s. After scope creep plagued the project, the system was finished 60 months past its planned completion deadline, 569 million over budget, and without the required feature to make it functional. Ultimately, the airport had to revert back to a manual labor system and abandon the project altogether. Another example is NASA. Instead of bringing all stakeholders together for consensus on scope requirement, designers and contractors were consulted separately. Further, instead of centralized decision-making, sub-teams were accountable to different leads, resulting in a conflicting plan and scope change requests. In the end, much of the scope creep could have been avoided with requirements and change management plan everyone agreed to. How to avoid scope creep in project management? So some strict steps need to be prioritized and followed in order to avoid it or mitigate the impact and the risk of it, including define requirements clearly, control process for change, schedule the task in your requirements, double check, cross check, and some way to manage scope creep in case your project already has it. Then you must take the following step to bring it back on track. Identify the scope creep, keep it transparent, setting limitations. You may have to discard changes and make decisions for your timeline and budget. Quality and ultimate success of a project are traditionally defined as meeting and or exceeding the expectations of the customer or upper management in terms of cost, time, and performance. The interrelationship among those criteria varies. For example, sometimes it's necessary to compromise the performance and scope of the project to get the project done quickly and less expensively. Often, the longer a project takes, the more expensive it becomes. However, a positive correlation between cost and schedule may not always be true. One time, the project cost can be reduced by using cheaper, less expensive, less efficient labor or equipment that extends the duration of the project. Likewise, as will be seen in next video, project managers are often forced to expedite or crush certain key activities by adding additional labor, thereby raising the original cost of the project. One of the primary jobs of a project manager is to manage the trade-offs among time, cost, and performance. To do so, project managers must define and understand the nature of the priorities of the project. They need to have a candid discussion with the project customers and upper management, and to establish the relative importance of each criteria. One technique found in practice that is useful for this purpose is completing a priority matrix for the project to identify which criterion is a constraint, which should be enhanced, and which can be accepted. Constraint, the original parameter is fixed. The project must meet the completion date, specification, and scope of the project and budget. Enhance, given the scope of the project, which criterion should be optimized. In the case of time and cost, this usually means taking advantage of opportunities to either reduce costs or shorten the schedule. Conversely, with regard to performance enhancing means adding value to the project. This displays the priority matrix for the development of a new wireless modem. Because time to market is important to sales, The project manager is instructed to take advantage of every opportunity to reduce completion time. In doing so, going over budget is acceptable, though not desirable. At the same time, the original performance specifications for the modem, as well as reliability standards, cannot be compromised. Priorities vary from project to project. For example, for many software projects, time to market is critical, and companies like Microsoft may have original scope requirements to later versions in order to get to the market. First, alternatively, for special event, time is constrained once the date has been announced, and if the budget is right, the project manager will compromise the scope of the project in order to complete the project on time. Once the scope and deliverables have been identified, the work of the project can be successfully subdivided into smaller and smaller work elements. The outcome of the hierarchical process is called the work breakdown structure, WBS. The WBS is a map of the project. Use of WBS helps to assure project managers that all products and work elements are identified, to integrate the project with the current organization and to establish a basis for control. Especially the WBS is an outline of the project with different levels of details. This figure shows the major groupings commonly used in the field to develop a hierarchical WBS. The WBS begins with the project as the final deliverables. Major project work deliverables or systems are identified first, then sub-deliverables necessary to accomplish the layer deliverables are defined. The process is repeated until the sub-deliverables detail is small enough to be manageable and where one person can be responsible. The sub-deliverables is further divided into workplace ages because the lowest deliverables usually include several work packages. The work packages are grouped by type of work, for example, hardware, programming, testing. This grouping within sub-deliverables are called cost accounts. The WBS defines all the elements of the project in a hierarchical framework and to establish their relationships to the project and items. Think of the project as a large work project that is successfully broken down into smaller work packages. The total project is the summation for all the smaller work packages. This hierarchical structure facilitates the evaluation of cost, time, and technical performance at all levels in the organization over the life of the project. The WBS also provides management with information appropriate to each level. For example, top management deals primarily with major deliverables, while first-line supervisors deal with smaller sub-deliverables and work packages. Each item in the WBS needs a time and cost estimate. With this information, it is possible to plan, schedule, and budget the whole project. Here's another example shows a simple WBS for development of a new personal computer project. At the top of the chart, level 1 is the project and item, a deliverable, product or service. Note how the levels of the structure can represent information for different levels of management. For example, level 1 information represents the total project objective and is useful to top management. Level 2, 3, and 4 are suitable for middle management, and level 5 is for first-line managers. Each sub-deliverables requires work package that will be completed by an assigned organizational unit. Each deliverable will be successfully divided in this manner. It's not necessary to divide all elements of the WBS to the same level. The lowest level of the WBS is called a work package. This is another WBS example that illustrates a job application process, including a couple of major deliverables that are yellow, blue, green, orange, and purple. Within different sub-deliverables, there are smaller deliverables as well. And this chart gives readers a very clear illustration what are jobs to be done and what are the priorities of the different tasks involved in applying for a new job. This is a grand example, which is fictional about going to the moon, and it involves how to budget the WBS actually, and also involves quite a lot of different proportions that are helping to plan the WBS. So some tips to have a successful PSM. To have a successful PSM, there are some things that need to be done. For example, first, understanding the project and establish and have a firm grasp on the project's goals and aims. Secondly, identify the project requirements. Thirdly, hire a qualified project manager. This can be a very essential step. The best plan in the world will fall apart if you do not have the right project manager to implement it for you. They should be adept at managing a team with a clear understanding how to allocate tasks and resources based on skill and personalities of each person. And fourthly, define milestones. And fifth, maintain communication. Number 6, identify team members' strengths and weaknesses. 7, take advantage of management tools. There are many resources in online project management pool, including software or hardwares. This tool can be a centralized platform to track, manage, share, and communicate with everyone involved in the project. Number 8, practice risk management. Potential risks is essential part of project management and need to be accounted for. This will help to identify potential threats and avoid mistakes and cost overruns that could derail a project. Number 9, test deliverables. In order to deliver a project successfully, you need to develop a test at critical milestones. This will ensure the requirements of each step have been met. Finally, evaluation of the project. After project is completed, the project manager should review and evaluate the various components of the project and the whole project as well. The objective is to identify successful factors as well as areas where improvements could be made to prevent mistakes in future projects. A work package is some questions should be asked. Is the lowest levels of WBS is a short duration task that has a definite start and stop point. Should not consumes resources and represents cost. Should not exceed 10 working days or 1 reporting period. Should be as independent of other work packages of the project as possible. And also is the basic unit used for planning, scheduling, and controlling of a project. There is an important difference between, from start to finish, between the last work breakdown sub-deliverables and work package. Typically, a work breakdown sub-deliverables includes the outcomes of more than one work package from perhaps 2 or 3 departments. Therefore, the sub-deliverables do not have a duration of its own and does not consume resources or cost money directly. The higher elements are used to identify deliverables at different phases in the project and to develop status reports during the execution stage of the project lifecycle. Thus, the work package is the basic unit used for planning, scheduling, and controlling. The WBS is used to link the organizational unit responsible for performing the work. In practice, the outcome of the process is the organization breakdown structure. This OBS depicts how the firm has organized to discharge work responsibility. The purpose of OBS are to provide a framework to summarize organization unit work performance, identify organization unit responsible for work package, and tie the organizational unit to cost control accounts. So even if the project is completely performed by a team, it is necessary to break down the team structure for assigning responsibility for budgets, time, and technical performance. As in the WBS, the OBS assigns the lowest organizational unit the responsibility for work packages with a cost account. Herein lies one major strength of using WBS and OBS. They can be integrated as shown in this figure. The intersection of work packages and the organizational unit creates a project control point, which is called the cost account, that integrates work and responsibility. The intersection of the WBS and OBS represents the set of work packages necessary to complete the sub-deliverables located immediately above under the organizational unit on the left responsible for accomplishing the package at the intersection. Later, we will use the intersection as a cost account for management control of project. Control can be checked from two directions, outcomes and responsibilities. In the execution phase of the project, progress can be tracked vertically on deliverables and tracked horizontally by organization responsibility. Gaining the maximum usefulness of a breakdown structure depends on a coding system. The codes are used to define levels and elements in the WBS, organization elements, work package, and budget and cost information. The codes allow reports to be consolidated at any level in the structure. The most commonly used scheme is numerical intention. An example for the new computer project and the disk storage units is presented here. So note the project identification is 1.0. Each successive intention represents a lower element or work package. Ultimately, the numerical scheme reaches down to the work package level, and all tasks and elements in the structure have an identification code. The cost account is the focal point because all budgets, work assignments, time, cost, and technical performance come together at this point. This coding system can be extended to cover large projects. Additional schemes can be added for special reports. Process breakdown PBS structure tend to be used for process-oriented projects and often referred to as the waterfall method in the software industry. Process-oriented projects tend to be a project that the final outcome is a product or of a service of steps and phases. It tend to involve over time with each phase affecting the next phase. It's a project that is driven by performance requirements, not by plans or blueprints. For example, we have got a figure for large and more complex project to develop a new piece of automation requirements. Notice that within each cell, a numerical coding scheme is used to define the nature of the involvement on that specific task. So the intersection of the WBS and OBS represents the set of work package necessary to complete the sub-deliverables located immediately above under the organizational unit. Control can be checked from two directions as well, including both vertically and horizontally. This is another responsibility matrix for a research project. It has both horizontal responsibility point and vertical task breakdown. Responsibility and support assistant roles are very clearly defined. Another example as well, including many different types of responsibilities and individuals that could be cross-sectioned with different tasks. So project communication plan. What is a project communication plan? Normally, it addresses the following questions. Once the project deliverables and work are clearly identified, follow up with an internal communication plan is vital. Stories abound of poor communication as a major contributor to project failure. Having a robust communication plan can go a long way toward mitigating project problems and can ensure that customers, team members, and other stakeholders have the information to do their job. The communication plan is usually created by the project manager or the project team in the early stage of the project planning. Normally, they're used to answer those questions like 4W questions and a how question. So the plan maps out the flow of information to different stakeholders and becomes an integral part of the overall plan. The purpose of a project communication plan is to express what, who, how, and when information will be transmitted to project stakeholders, so schedules, issues, and actions can be tracked. Steps for developing the plan, including stakeholder analysis, information needs, source of information analysis, that is, where does the information reside? How will it be collected? For example, information related to milestone report, team meetings, and project status meetings would be found in the minutes and report of various groups. Number 4 is the dissemination models, including hard copy, email, teleconference, SharePoint, database, and so on. 5, responsibility and timing, which determine who will send out the information and when. Timing and frequency of distribution appropriate to the information need to be established. The advantage of establishing a communication plan is that instead of responding to information requests, project managers can control the flow of information. As shown in this Shell Oil Research Project communication plan, this reduces confusion and unnecessary interruptions, and it can provide project managers greater autonomy. This is because by reporting on a regular basis how things are going and what is happening, project managers allow senior management to feel more comfortable about letting the team complete the project without interference. This is a very realistic figure and well-established communication plan. The image depicts a stakeholder communication matrix, which is another tool used in project management to classify stakeholders and a communication matrix. It's divided into 4 quadrants, each suggesting a different strategy for managing stakeholder communication. So for high power, low interest, which is in A and D stakeholders, the strategy could be these stakeholders have significant power to influence the project, but are not highly interested in the day-to-day operation. So the goal is to keep them satisfied by providing just enough information to keep them content without overwhelming them with too much unnecessary information. And another one is high power and high interest. These tend to be the managers, and they are FHC stakeholders. The appropriate strategy could be because they are most critical, stakeholders, so they have high power as well as high interest in that project. So they need to be managed closely with regular and detailed communication to ensure their needs and expectations are met and they remain supportive of the project. And so on. Another one I highlight is low power and low interest. So these stakeholders tend to be G and B. And the strategy, relatively speaking, because these stakeholders are the least influential and the least interested. So they require only general information about the project. The goal is to inform them adequately without spending too much effort on communication. So this matrix can help for illustration and visualizing what our prioritizing plan could be when communicating with different stakeholders, depending on their power and interest, and ensuring efficient and effective use of resources and stakeholder management. So these are the chapter 4 about defining projects. Here are some review questions to help you understand this chapter further, including what are the elements of a typical scope statement? What question does the project objective answer? What does it mean if the priority of a project include time constraint, scope, accept, and cost enhance? And also questions about OBS, YBS, WBS, and benefits and strengths of using communication plan in a project management. This is a list of key terms that are used in this chapter that can help consolidate students' understanding and information attainment. Chapter 4 is the core textbook reading, which is about defining a project. That's it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening and looking forward to seeing you again.